All right.
Okay.
I gotta go to bed. I love you guys, but
Later.
I'm exhausted.
That may be in the opening right there.
Yes.
Peace out.
Later.
See you.
Oh, he gone.
One, two, three, four.
Hello, all. A quick interruption to make note of our 2 discount codes from our awesome sponsors so you guys can go get you some good gear at a discounted price. The first one is for Hook and Gaff. You can use the discount code LOVEGOLF15, all one word, and the number 15 is just the digits. That'll get you 15% off of your order. And then for Cricket shirts, you can go and use For Love of 19. That's FORE. And then again, the digits for 1919. Hope you enjoy. Go get you some cool stuff. That'll help them know that we sent you. And we hope you enjoy the goodies. Thanks, everybody.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of For Love of Golf. You're hearing a different voice on the intro this week. This is Ryan, but we do have everyone here. All four of us are gathered again. Welcome back, gentlemen.
How's
Hello,
it
sir.
going?
Well done.
Oh, gee, thanks. We have a little bit of a different guest this week. It's golf adjacent, I would say. We talked to Eric Wind of Wind Vintage watches, and he's a big golfer, so we had a lot of interesting golf stories, but we also learned a lot about the vintage watch industry, which was fun for all of us, and I think you guys will enjoy it as well. So we have that to look forward to, and we also want to go over our picks from last week. So Parker, what do you want
This is
to?
a, this is a big week.
There's
Double tournament week,
two events.
2 events, one being a signature event, and things happened. So let's just recap the picks this week.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
start with our host this evening, Ryan Martin.
yeah.
Selected Colin Morikawa and Adam Hadwin.
Yeah, I selected Colin because I could not select Daniel Berger because I had selected him the previous week. So
That's
the
it.
first round leader by 3 strokes went to the other three gentlemen on the panel.
Exactly. The true
Could have been
definition of
worse,
the one and
though.
done.
Could have been worse.
Yeah,
Could have been
Colin
worse.
Colin finished solo fifth, but in a signature event, that was $1.5 million difference.
It was a big
So
difference. You gained a total of $885,480 to bring your total to $5,102,296, which, by my math, again, I don't have an MBA, but I do have Google Sheets. Justin Fabling has taken over the lead.
uh
Oh, nice.
Picked Daniel Berger and Blades Brown, the Berger Brown combo for $2.476 million. Great week, Fabling. You are now in the lead. Um, Hunter, Berger, and Gordon Sargent, 2.297, 500,000. Same as me, actually, even though we had different picks, Berger and Jesper Svensson. However, with Justin taking the week, he has to give a winner's speech. So, what do you have to say for yourself?
But this segment has
No,
can't
this isn't
continue.
this isn't final words with
Fantastic.
Fabling. This is your winner's speech.
All right, well, let's just say I'm looking forward to Sawgrass. Um, and so let's get to those picks.
Excellent insight. Thank you. I really appreciate your recap of the week.
Uh,
Um, all right, so you get first pick with that blazing recap of last week's events and how you won. Tell us how you're going to win this week.
Oh man. All
How
right.
many? Oh my, that's a five-way tie for the lead.
This one's kind of tricky again.
Yeah, especially for you because you always have two picks.
This is true. Um, I'm gonna do Ludwig.
Wow. Where is Ludwig? Gosh, you guys go
Three.
down the leaderboard. You guys are gutsier than I am.
Only two behind though.
It's a tight leaderboard,
That's
unlike
true.
last week. Yeah.
That's true. Good point. Probably should pay attention to that. All right. Bear
Oh,
for failing.
Bears, right.
Let's see. Hunter and I tied, so we'll flip a coin.
All right. You win.
Tails, you lost. Um, I'm going with Russell Henley.
It's a good pick. I like
A little
that
home
one.
cooking there.
A little home cooking, exactly. Putter gets hot, he can do pretty well. It's an interesting one because it's like this is one of those really big events where I kind of want to pick like a big name, right? But the
Perhaps a
like,
major winner.
yeah, perhaps, but I'm actually not going to, I don't think. Um, Famously not a major winner, probably. Um, but you also don't want to waste is not the right word. You want to kind of save those for the majors a little bit too. So
Well, I guess we know your answer on whether the players is a major or not. That's 0 for 1.
it is not a major
I'm gonna, I'm
by
gonna I'm gonna
no.
save a pick for a big tournament, guys.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
just the players.
It's not a major, to be clear. It is not a major. That is for sure. I know it's the
Technically, it is
toughest
not.
field in golf, but it's not a major. And I hope it never becomes a major. I think it's just,
We'll get to that in a second.
yeah, all right. I'm gonna take Tony Finau,
Hmm.
which is yeah, he hasn't had the best of past little bit, but I think I don't know. I feel like this is gonna be his breakthrough
What a
moment.
huge win it would be for
It would
Tony
be
Finau.
huge. And
Uh,
that's kind of it. Like I kind of want it to
yeah.
happen too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Scraping the bottom of the barrel, Ryan.
Yeah.
Last place finisher.
Last place finisher. First week leader already lost the lead.
You're still in second, though.
That's good to hear.
Right now,
I
Hunter's got to play in the mini golf masters.
Yes. Let's go.
I am gonna go with a guy who went bogey free today, which is tough to do, but he's also tied for the lead, so it's not a big risk. Sepp Straka.
Good call.
Nice.
That's a
He's
good
solid.
choice.
I could see that one way. I could see him winning for sure. He seems like he just doesn't get too flustered
Yeah.
Yeah.
by stuff.
Good choices.
I think he's a guy that can win big tournaments.
Agreed.
I don't even know exactly what the biggest tournament he's won so far, but I think he's got the temperament and the talent to pull it off if he's still in contention on Sunday. So we'll see.
This
There
has
you
to
go.
be the most like stacked our picks have been for sure. I mean, Tony Finau, Ludwig Aberg, Sepp Straka, Russell Henley. That's pretty solid. Um,
Shout out to Justin Thomas after his
Shout
horrible
out.
week last week. Hopefully he can put 4 rounds together, but I'm not
Nobody
gonna
picked him.
bet on
Multiple
it.
major winner. Nobody picked him.
Yeah.
Not gonna.
A
He
little risky.
also he
Little
plays really
risky.
well at Sawgrass.
He
Well,
does
wasn't it last year where he shot 81, 61 back-to-back rounds at the players
something
or
like
something
that.
like
That's
Yeah.
insane.
that? Yeah.
Everybody's gonna save him for a big tournament, I guess. Um,
Mhm.
why is the play? Why can it not be a major? And here's my argument. I'm not necessarily arguing for it to be a major. I think it is funny how everybody's talking about it this year, seeming like more than ever. But the majors are the majors because basically they just somebody said they should be.
Sure.
I feel like so because they have, you know, whether it's history,
It's the history
whatever
of the
it is.
game for sure.
So, and again, I'm not sure that I'm advocating for it to be a major, but why? Because I like Fore for one. I think Fore is enough, but why would basically the best field in golf with an iconic golf course, the tournament has a much bigger identity than just about any tournament? Why can it not be a major?
I mean, it could be like what LBJ has five, right?
Why
Um,
should it not be a major?
well, I just think that too much history, too much time has passed with it being the four majors that we have known since what? Since the Masters, what was that, 40 or something? So I just think it's too much time has passed to where it's like this is just kind of the precedent and just kind of how it is. I mean, it could change, but I don't think I'd be a super in favor with it because then it'd be like, well, then do we go back and say Tiger has 14 plus whatever?
I think that's easy to do though.
Yeah, but it wasn't a major at the time.
But
So
why
then all of a
not?
sudden, like Ricky Fowler's now a major winner when like
It
that's
was
like a
still a
huge
huge tournament. Like I feel like
agree.
people go into this week and it's a different vibe than a
Totally
regular tour
agree.
event.
Totally agree that it is a different vibe. But is it I don't know. We could ask maybe if we ever go to PGA Tour player on here, we can ask if it feels the same as a
I
major.
think that would be a great
Um,
question to
or
ask a
if there's
player.
like an if there's an extra layer of major championship. And like I mean, you could probably argue, like you are arguing a little bit, like it has more of an identity than the PGA potentially. Um, like obviously the PGA has way richer of a history, right? And the history behind that tournament. But in the past 30 years, your average golf fan would probably remember the players more than the PGA a little bit. But yeah, I just think it's gone too long, and golf's such a history sport that it would be odd for it to all of a sudden be a fifth major. And like for some reason, that four number, it's like that in tennis. I don't know, like that four
Everybody
number
loves a
just
Grand
seems
Slam.
seems right. Yeah.
I do agree with you on that. I don't think I would have my feelings hurt though as much now as I might have a few years ago if they said, "Oh, we're going to count it as a major." I mean, it still gets like, yeah, I mean, the tour I guess makes points, but I mean, like, the purse is huge, the course is a big deal, the coverage is huge. It's like everything about it is to me like screams major, but it's just like we can't do it because we've already got four. It's kind of like when you go play golf somewhere and you've already got three. You don't need to add another one.
Correct. No, you do not. That's exactly right. Because of history and all that kind of stuff, I don't want to have to.
Yeah.
It's
Golf is
just
a
the way it
game
is, Parker.
played
It's
with
just the
three
way it
people.
is.
It makes for great matches.
Yeah.
You
Or
know,
if you're, I mean, if you're playing at Grove, like if I went to Grove, I would invite 16 friends, just not you guys.
sounds about right. I wouldn't expect anything less.
Uh,
Justin, Ryan, any feedback on the players being a major? Would love to get your opinions.
I guess I just don't understand what the benefit would be to just arbitrarily now calling it a major. I don't think that makes it any bigger than it already is necessarily. It doesn't
But
change its
so in
identity.
devil's advocate, is that the reason why it should be? If calling it a major can't make it any bigger than it is now, then is it already there?
No, because then to Hunter's point, it kind of messes with the history of the game. Like if it's not going to change anything about the tournament or how much players care about it or how many people watch it or anything, if it's still going to be what it is, just calling it a major then retroactively causes problems. It doesn't add any value to the tournament. I don't think it does anything positive. I think it only does negative, is what
See,
I'm trying to say.
hot take. I think it would devalue the Masters a little bit because the Masters identity is like the start of golf season for a lot of regular golfers, right? And I know the players is before that.
that's
Um,
Now,
and it's the one that has the same venue every single year. So it almost is
right.
not quite different enough from the Masters to where it just doesn't in my brain, and maybe it's just because I'm used to it. I don't know, but it just doesn't fit quite as well. Like, yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't make as much sense to me. That's
I
for
think
sure.
it would need to like move on the schedule because
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
The
Well,
Masters is the first major of the year.
for sure.
I mean, I've heard a lot of interviewers with tour players saying they would like to see it back in May. The course just plays different um, in May than it does in March. But yeah, I agree. If they tried to do that, I think it would have to go back to May, and the Masters would still have to be the first one. But yeah, I don't know.
I feel like
Justin.
if we, uh, yeah, Justin, go.
I like the idea of four.
You guys are a lot of fun.
I don't know if it's just because it's the history, but or the evenness of it. Um, but yeah, I I think it's probably good with four. Not sure why we need to add another one.
Question for you, Parker, or you guys. How many majors does Bobby Jones have?
You see, that's a great point
Yeah.
Yep.
because a lot of people will say that I mean, they count his Grand Slam.
Yeah.
But those
So,
were, yeah.
But it was also, I mean, to like it makes a little more sense because it was before the Masters. So like, most of his wins were before or all of his wins were before the Masters. So it makes more sense in that regard. But when you talk about Tiger and Jack, you don't also include their USAMs.
Right.
but
So
you
yeah,
could.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, if we're going to count Bobby Jones as in a Grand Slam, maybe we should count. And hey, as an aside, Tiger's got a chance to go get the U.S. Senior Open this year at Scioto, so hopefully he's going to be up there doing it.
I mean, it would be like I wonder if it's I know we talked about this a little bit before, but I wonder if it's a little bit of a qualifier to get in the Hall of Fame of golf. Like, let's say you have one
The
major.
players,
Yeah, let's say you have
100%.
one
Ask
major.
Fred Couples
Yeah,
and Davis
exactly.
Love.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, if you have one major and you've won a players, like, all right, you're not two, but like, hey,
Fred Couples is in the Hall of Fame.
yeah,
Davis Love is in the Hall of Fame.
yeah.
John Daly is not. John Daly has two majors. Both those guys have one major and maybe multiple players, but
Do you
John
think John
Daly,
Daly, John Daly's
John Daly should be in the Hall of Fame.
probably? Do you think he's not in the Hall of Fame because he's John Daly?
I don't know, but it's the Hall of Fame. It's not the Hall of Great Golf or Hall of Great
Sure, but
whatever else.
other sports have somewhat of that kind of precedent too, with
Yeah, I
baseball
feel
and
like a
that
lot
kind
of
of
that's
stuff.
like cheating though.
Yeah, yeah, totally, yeah,
Like cheating within the sport.
yeah, yeah. No,
I
I think
think
you
John
can.
Daly, I'm pro John Daly in the Hall
Oh,
of
me too,
Fame.
by the way, but absolutely, me too, no doubt.
But I'm still not sure if I'm pro players being a major. I think it's a worthy conversation. I think it's close enough that it's at least like an interesting conversation because I think it does get taken. I hate I, I feel like it's pretty close to like if you were to however anybody wants to rank the four majors. I feel like the players is right there with probably whatever you rank the fourth major.
Yeah, I mean, people would say like the PGA and the players are probably pretty close to each other.
I think the
Just like,
majority of America would
yeah,
say that the
but
PGA is the fourth of four majors, which is unfortunate as four PGA people here.
yeah,
But and I bet you I'd love to have a take a poll and
hmm.
see what American golfers say is a bigger event.
Who won the players last year?
It's a good question. Rory.
Yeah, that is true. Actually, that was an easy one. But like, that's some of the way I think about it a little bit too. Like, if I were to think back on who's won the players the past 5 years, I don't really know off the top of my head. I could probably think about it with all the other majors and probably figure it out. Maybe.
Yeah. But I think that's because they are majors. I mean,
Yeah, probably true.
it
Yeah.
just lends itself to that. I feel like
Yeah.
if you thought about the players as a major,
Hmm.
it would I guess it wouldn't take long for me. Like I think it would be weird for a year and then everybody would get used to it and it's just like, okay, here's this is a major this year and in about 3 years it'd be like, okay, this is just the norm.
Yeah. Yeah.
But all that to say, I'm probably not I'm probably good with four.
That's probably what it's
Um,
going to happen. It's probably
do
how
what?
so that's probably how it's going to be. It's probably going to stay that way. I think it would take a
Well,
lot of.
who's gonna say like who gets to make that call?
It's a great question. I don't know. Is that the PGA Tour? Is that the USGA RNA? I don't know. It's a good
I
question.
think if it was the PJ Tour, they would just say it now.
Yeah, probably.
Like
It's
I
a good
don't know,
question.
like how do you
The Golf Writers Association? I don't even know. I have no idea.
Hall of Fame?
Yeah,
I
Hall of
don't
Fame.
know.
I don't know.
I feel like the
Maybe we
Hall of
should.
Fame would have about as good a case as anybody for making that.
Yeah,
Well, boys,
we got to make
fun
our
week.
picks. Yeah.
We made our picks. Oh, I almost forgot. Final words, Fabling?
Dang it. He was like, dang it. His head just said, dang it.
So this needs to get cut.
Something you want to leave us with?
Um, let's just say the one time I got to play Sawgrass, I was standing on 16T and the horn blew, had to go in,
Oh,
and then didn't get to finish because of darkness. So I played 15 holes at Sawgrass.
Fabling, your story is eerily similar to mine. I went down there and played 11 holes, and my gracious host could not stay and finish the round at a very slow play. So I played 11 holes and just drove by 16, 17, and 18, probably like you did.
you couldn't keep playing, or like you just felt bad keep playing?
I would have been out, we had one cart, I guess. I would have been out there by myself. He needed
Gotcha.
to get in, and I figured it was one of
Gotcha.
those places I could go back to at some point and now I can't.
Nope.
You can. It's just 800
He
bucks.
gone.
There you go.
Yep, he gone. My host is gone.
That is brutal. I don't
We're on
know if I have a
Sawgrass.
story like that at all at like a golf course of like not being able to play the whole thing. That is rough.
I
There's
think
a golf.
Justin came to visit me at Kinlock and it was too wet that day and they closed the course, so he didn't
Oh,
get to play anything.
that's rough.
Wow. There's a golf course I will not name, and supposedly the story I've heard is if you're playing unaccompanied and a member comes on property, you have to leave the golf course no matter where you are. So there was, if I've got this right, my friend was playing, somebody came in on like their helicopter, and he was on like, I don't know, somewhere on the back nine, had to pick up and leave.
That's wild. That doesn't even make sense, really. Like, so
Who
they don't
comes
have a
out and
lot of
tells you?
members. They don't have a lot of members that play there
They have
then.
very, very, very few members.
And
Interesting.
they don't want to see any non-members out there.
That's wild.
Correct.
That is weird. Interesting policy.
Haven't experienced
Not
it
want to be the
myself.
golf professional to go and enforce that all the time. And I've had experiences kind of like that at certain places, but I
Hmm.
wouldn't want to go enforce that one. Like, nope, you can't even see the whole golf course. Sorry.
It's tough.
Dumb.
Sorry about that, but
Yeah.
try again next time. Just make
Yeah.
sure it's on a day when nobody else is gonna show up.
Which, like, how do you even make sure that happens? That's wild. All right.
I guess that's why you join there instead of playing as an unaccompanied
I
freebie.
guess so.
But boys, we'll do this again next week if we can. Ryan, hopefully you get some sleep before then.
Yeah.
If not, if you haven't already gotten some at the tail end of this podcast.
Yeah, I think I've been asleep. Sorry
All
about that,
right.
but sorry, not sorry. All right.
Okay.
I gotta go to bed. I love you guys, but
Later.
I'm exhausted.
That may be in the opening right there.
Yes.
Peace out.
Later.
See you.
Oh, he gone. If you're someone who knows it's time to put the phone down and be present with your family or in the outdoors, this one's for you. Whether your escape is the golf course, the water, or the field, Hook and Gaff Watch Company makes watches built for time that actually matters. Assembled right here in the Carolinas, Hook and Gaff watches feature scratch-resistant sapphire crystal, lightweight titanium, and rugged designs made to handle real adventure without sacrificing style, because performance should look good too. Strap on a Hook and Gaff watch and get back to what matters most. Hook and Gaff Watch Company. Time well spent. Welcome back, everyone. Another episode of For Love of Golf. I believe this is episode 44. That would be our Hank Aaron episode. Welcome, fellas. We have a very distinguished guest here, so everybody button up. This guy went to fancy colleges and knows a lot of things. So, Justin, you're probably the best to lead this episode. You kind of fancy yourself, especially in that brown shirt you got on right there.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but well, I'll do my best.
Welcome, everyone. Eric, thanks for coming on. We appreciate you doing this. I'm excited about it. We're all kind of gotten into some watches a little bit more, and I've obviously you and I have known each other for a little while now, so appreciate you making time to do this and come on here and talk some watches.
Thank you. We had a fun time. Two anecdotes, I guess. One, if this is episode 44, it's appropriate because my dad went to first grade with Gail Aaron, Hank Aaron's daughter
Oh,
in
wow.
Milwaukee. So
How about that?
Hank would often come pick Gail up from school, particularly Friday afternoons. Every Friday afternoon, all the first graders were happy to see him. And there was a great pitcher named Warren Spahn,
Mm-hmm.
left-hander southpaw for the Braves. He was approaching the end of his career with the Milwaukee Braves at that time, and they had his final home game. It was called Spahny Night. uh, my grandparents had a family friend who was at the game, and she got a home run ball that was hit off of Warren Spahn and then gave it to my dad. She was, in the bleachers, got the home run. Unfortunately, it was off of Warren Spahn. And then he had Hank sign it. And it said Hank was known later in his life for not signing people's names. He'd only sign Hank Aaron. He wouldn't personalize them. But this was personalized, and it was to Michael, like Hank Aaron. And he gave me the ball, and I gave it to my son, Charlie, so he has it in his room on the
Heck
shelf.
yeah.
That's pretty
How
cool. It's
about
pretty
that?
funny.
That's
So
very
Charlie's
cool.
Charlie's been running in some good company here lately too. I've been seeing Charlie
yeah,
gets to go on some cool trips with you.
he does. Yeah, he does. Unfortunately, he didn't make it to the PGA show, which is where I last saw you, Parker. But next time for sure.
We'll get in there. You're gonna have to
It was
get him to.
cool.
You have to
It was a
skip
school
school
thing.
to do it,
Yeah,
but we
yeah,
won't tell
exactly.
anybody. It's
Yeah, exactly.
educational.
It is. I think
Very
maybe we
educational.
can make the case next year that he should be allowed to go. So it'll
That's
be
right.
fun.
We can do it. We can do it.
Yeah.
We'll get a letter from. We'll get like Bob Ford to write like a note. It's kind of like
Or
a doctor's note or something. We'll just get
yeah,
it. You can get it from Bob
Brad
Ford. Surely we
Brad
can.
Faxon would,
Yeah,
and
we'll get
Brad
Brad Faxon to do it. That's right. That'd
good.
be great. Well, this is great. So I want to obviously get into your journey a little bit. So, um, obviously this is a golf podcast, but this one's going to be very off topic tonight. It's going to be mostly watches, I think,
I
and
hope
I
it's
know
most golfly, but
we'll
no.
we'll 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 tie
So
in
much
some
fun.
golf for sure.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Um, so tell us a little bit like about your journey for those that don't know. Um, you know, kind of about, you're growing up and going to college and then how you got it into watches and went from enjoying watches and kind of the different steps you took to get to where you are now with Win Vintage.
Sure. I grew up in Manitowoc, Wisconsin, small town. Um, I thought growing up, I thought golf was really, really boring until a gentleman named Tiger Woods came along in 1997 and won the Masters. I had watched Greg Norman's meltdown in the 96 Masters, actually, and found that kind of interesting. I was gravitated toward the Masters generally every year. But I was 10 years old when Norman, actually 9 when Norman melted down. And then Tiger won the 97. I was still 10. And that was like, wow, with the red Nike shirt and everything else, totally different than every anticipation. And I remember Scotty Cameron, Terillium putter, and everything else. Became obsessed with Scotty Cameron. That was around the year I first became familiar with Scotty Cameron tour putters. But had bid on one on eBay only to see it. I had my budget was like $50 and it went for, literally at that time, 1700. It was a Newport Beach oil can that was like a new putter at that time tour. And then I recently bought one kind of thanks to Parker getting me back into Scotty Cameron collecting. So that's neither here nor there. But I grew up in Wisconsin. I did love golf after Tiger. I caddied and was worked at a golf course, which was a private country club. Nothing crazy fancy in Manitowoc, but um, was a lot of fun and played golf as much as I could. The problem was for us, golf season was literally like 3 to 4 months at most. Really, June, July, and August were the only pretty much guaranteed months you could play golf. I saw it snow as early as September 11th in my childhood. I remember vividly. and I remember seeing snow as late as mid-May. I played high school golf, but there were times it was literally 32 degrees and our hands are shaking. We're trying to hit golf balls with steel shafted irons, and it's not very comfortable.
No,
Having to rattle up the iron shaft. And uh so I played okay, but not as well as I could have if I had like even 6 months of golf a year, whatever. But
sure.
I loved it. I went to Georgetown for college. I was not going to be good enough to play golf on that team. They won the Big East at least one year I was there, which was cool. Um, I studied international politics, and toward the end of my time in college, I inherited my grandfather's Hamilton after he passed away. My grandparents passed away. It was a simple, small, round watch called the Neil that my grandmother gave to him for their wedding in 1947. That was, I've bought more Hamilton Neils on eBay for literally $100 each. It's not the value, but the craftsmanship's wonderful. They're very special, you know, it's just very special to have a mechanical watch that you have to wind up every day. And he wore it essentially his whole life until he passed. So that got me going in the rabbit hole of vintage watches generally. I wasn't working in watches, just kind of collecting. You occasionally buy and sell like Parker does with putters. And then decided to go to Oxford for graduate school. I met my wife. Got an MBA there. We moved to England. It was a fantastic experience. Then I moved to Florida, which was a dream. I played golf when I was at Oxford, just would try to play with a couple classmates once a week on a local muni. It was awesome. Like you kind of overlooked the town. Those were
Heck yeah.
special days. And then obviously not in the heart of winter, it was too cold, but in the spring we had like a regular day. We would go and then go to class. And I remember one day we were kind of held up, and I was like the jerk that literally went right to class with like my bag of clubs and stuck it in the back of the classroom, and everyone's like, geez, what are you doing? It was really funny.
That's great.
Good memory. The teacher didn't knock me any points, so that was good. And the that was a great experience. I moved to Florida. I was excited to move to Florida for golf reasons,
For
as
sure.
well as work. But I was like, what? Year-round golf? We had my son Charlie. I was taking him out to the range when he was one and hitting golf balls with him and putting with him at 1 year old. Charlie was working in bioenergy, and then had been writing for this blog called Hodinky for a number of years about watches as a hobby since 2010. And that took off, and I ended up getting a job with Christie's, and the rest is history. I decided to start Win Vintage in 2017 and buy and sell watches and vintage watches all day, every day.
Charlie's inherited the golf gene too. He seems like he's got the bug, and
He does.
we'll have to show Hunter his golf swing. He's got a great swing. How old is he?
Charlie's 12.
Okay.
So we're
Nice.
gearing up for middle school golf tryouts, which are in a few weeks. Sixth through eighth grade. It'll be fun. Or, you know, we'll
Yeah, that'll be
see.
fun. Probably
He's
pretty good competition down there too. It's not like it's
yeah.
yeah,
He played in a U.S. kids tournament a few years
nice,
back, and Charlie. I mean, he plays. But Charlie Woods was in the same tournament, so it's pretty cool. And
nice.
Tiger was
Yeah.
there watching Charlie and stuff. I was like, this is nuts.
That's fun.
Um, so m- maybe let's go right into watches. From my experience, watches kind of they're either in the category of modern or vintage, but I believe you focus more on the vintage watches. So here's a maybe trying not trying to be funny, but like what separates a vintage watch from just simply an old watch?
Well, any old watch pretty much is a vintage watch. I guess when you say something's about 100 years old, then it's an antique watch, some people say, but we're approaching some great watches that are 100 years old here. Wristwatches, there are certainly pocket watches and things much older than 100 years old that are, serious collectibles. The thing in general that kind of makes a vintage watch, for me, that cutoff's typically around 1989. It was when Rolex basically discontinued using what we call like plastic crystals or acrylic crystals. They went to all sapphire crystals at that point. They had already begun using sapphire crystals on some models going back to the 1960s, but really rolled them out in the 80s. And then by 1990, everything had a sapphire crystal. You also saw the advent of, computer aided design and different technology that gave the watches more precision in their construction, but a little less hand craftsmanship. Um, I guess like a CNC milled putter versus a handmade from any of the great makers Parker and I love. But I kind of love that. I love the old patina. You take the old Rolex Submariners and GMT Masters from the 1960s or the Explorers. The loom was painted directly on the dial. It's kind of every dial is a little bit unique because they're all like slightly imperfect. And then you have, you know, starting in the 80s, they began just having like a white gold circle with loom on it glued, perfectly on the dial, which you see on all the Rolex sports models today. They all look the same. They're identical. They're essentially going to age the same, which is not at all. So you get the patina kind of, it's not unlike, I keep making putter watch analogies, but I
No,
think
that's
it's
great.
much
That's
different.
great.
I'm
I
speaking
think it's a really good comparison, honestly.
I'm speaking Parker's language, but
Yeah.
like the old oil can finishes, or like some of these finishes you saw in carbon steel, black pearl finishes, all these gun blue, all these things, they all age. They're a little more sensitive than like, stainless steel head that's like perfect, or all these other things we see today where there's no real age. So that is I always love the feel of the carbon steel putters and like the 3X black finishes and the oil can and everything else. Um, so that is definitely a similar analogy with the watches. The older ones have more character. You have aluminum bezel inserts that are the rings on the Submariners, GMT Masters, etc. They fade, they scratch. You have them go from black to gray on Submariners with salt water and UV and everything. You can have the Pepsi bezel inserts that are red and blue fade to interesting colors. You don't see that with the Cerachrome ceramic bezels they have now, which are kind of perfect. They don't fade, they don't really age, etc. Um,
One thing that I think the putters and watches are a good comparison, but when the way you were saying that right now, it makes me think of one difference that I see is, you know, tropical dials and some of these bezel colors after they get faded, like they fetch a premium,
yeah,
whereas that doesn't happen in the putter world. If you see a an old handmade Scotty Cameron and the finish is all faded off of it and weird and it just looks different, like that typically does not make
yeah.
that putter go for a premium. So I think that's interesting how that is a little bit of a difference.
There is, I feel like I was having this conversation with someone recently, but I was fortunate enough to shoot around with Scottie Pippen at Sotheby's last Thursday, which was not an experience I ever thought I'd have in my life. But I was there with my son was invited up, and Scotty was selling a lot of his memorabilia, 71 items from his collection, jerseys, shoes, shorts, jackets, etc., from different important games. What was interesting was how they presented them, but also the other seven collectors that were invited who were pretty big collectors. Like I would didn't really did not deserve to be there. I'd never bought any sports memorabilia of any significant amount, but the head of Sotheby's Sports was nice enough to invite me because someone else dropped out. But you know, Larry Bird's jersey from the 1992 Dream Team, Scotty asked for it basically, I think at the end of the gold medal run, and Larry gave it to him, and it sold for $896,000. And like Scottie Pippen's jersey from the flu game from the '97 NBA Finals when Jordan was sick went for
From
$444,000.
somebody else's flu game.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And like just incredible stuff. Michael Jordan's shoes from the gold medal game went for
Ooh.
$650,000 from the Dream Team, etc. So it was really interesting. I was talking to the guys about how they present, their jerseys and things. Jerseys are by far like the most collectible of the items. They had a bunch of his shorts, and even Charlie Wind was like, "Who's gonna buy his shorts?" And like those would go for like $3,000 when the jersey that went with it went for $200,000
It's
for the
crazy.
Dream Team and stuff like that. But the it's interesting. Like I felt one that field is only going to skyrocket more, seeing the types of people who are interested. But I was like, imagine if Sotheby's did a Scotty Cameron auction, and like how Scotty Camerons are described now is very different than even 5 years ago, kind of pre-golden age big auctions. I feel like where for me, when I've bought a few too many putters the last year. Christine's not very thrilled with it, my wife, but like they're just, Bill Voganese describing this is the original finish, or this is clearly a studio refinish and things like that. And it's kind of like watches. I like the unpolished, all original watches versus ones that have been polished and the parts replaced. Here's like a GMT Master reference
Yeah.
1675, but it's really faded, the top of the bezel, which is kind of, most people in the past would just have replaced this insert because, it's faded to like a sky blue, but I think it's super cool because you basically never see them like this. Um, and I do like the kind of interesting things that happen with putters, just with the original gun blue finish from the '90s and things like that. It's a really cool thing. I feel like more and more people appreciate it. Bill certainly does. And I've admire him and his approach to collecting.
I think Scotties are going to reverse. There was a while early on in my collecting days when handmade putters were $5,000 or more. And
Hmm.
then you got a new wave of collectors, especially post COVID, and nobody wants seemingly like the old stuff anymore. You can get the same putter for probably less than $2,000 now. And that's gonna flip, I think, again and go the way of vintage watches at some point.
Yeah. No, I like the older pieces. I mean, they're really hard to find too. Like I've kind of zeroed in on the Newport Beach putters because that's what I use and have used since I bought my very first Cameron, which was an inspired by David Duval in 2001. And
Nice.
I used that for like
Good one.
16 years. But like, then I got a 009 that I bought from a local Club Pro track guy who was on a like the Corn Ferry, and that's what I've been using primarily since then. But I was like, this is really what I want to collect. So, but it's hard to find like the Newport Beach 2000 or 2001.
Yeah.
There's these random variants I remember from being a kid. I bought one, but like you just never see them. They're so rare. So
They are hard to find.
fun. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate as a watch newbie, I'm definitely like a 36 handicap when it comes to watch knowledge. So I appreciate
No,
the
no.
putter comps.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's I'm able to relate to it a lot more for sure. And as you're talking, I kind of have forgive it if it's a dumb question or something like that, but something maybe that I've never really necessarily thought of. When did watches go from more of like pocket watches to wrist watches, and the reason behind it, was it more of like a cultural thing? Was it technology advance? Was it a functional thing? Like if you know some of that, I'm just curious. It
Yeah.
popped in my head as you're talking about it a little bit
Um,
earlier.
it was really a practical thing
Yeah.
that they didn't, and it was World War I, in fact, trench warfare. So
Mhm.
everyone was using pocket watches pretty much exclusively until that time. While you're out like in the trench or about to coordinate an attack, because they would try to run across at a given time. It's not very useful to be reaching in your pocket and then looking, and you've got a rifle in your hands with both hands and everything else. So they began taking pocket watches and then basically welding on a little metal bar on both sides and sliding either often just like fabric or leather right through to go around your wrist and
Mm,
sometimes metal kind of chains, etc. So that was really the birth of it in a real way where it was used extensively. People wanting to have something on their wrist for trench warfare. There were also older wristwatches, famously the Cartier Santos for the Brazilian French aviator Alberto Santos Dumont. He was flying and also didn't
mm,
want like a pocket watch. He needed something on his wrist so he could see the time as he was kind of one of the early aviators. So those were practical reasons, and then it gradually just took hold by the 1920s, and they still pocket watches just were increasingly a much smaller percentage of sales for the Swiss watchmakers through the
mhm.
1940s, and then basically by the 1950s it had essentially died out. It was still there, but like super, super small.
Sure. What which speaking of vintage watches, which vintage watch brand do you think has the kind of most untold history or along those lines?
It's a good question. I mean, there's a lot of great kind of quasi-defunct brands that I love. A couple examples, Enicar, which is Racine spelled backwards. They
Mhm.
were a very important watchmaker in the 60s. They kind of pioneered some of the chronographs being used on in Formula One at that time, and dive watches worn by all these cool people, Alain Delon, Jim Clark, Sterling Moss, all these great drivers and actors and military guys wore them. But the quartz crisis, which was when the first kind of really accurate battery powered watches came out in 1969 from Seiko, those were the first quartz watches. Now you can buy quartz watches for, $5 on Amazon or $3. But at the time they cost as much as a car. But they rapidly in the 70s got so much cheaper that it threw the Swiss watch industry into a total crisis. So we call it the quartz crisis. Many companies went out of business basically, or were about to go out of business, like Omega, uh, etc. So um, all these brands that essentially went out of business, then Gallet went out of business. They're really cool. They're restarting. Universal Genève essentially went out of business. That's restarting. Uh, I'm part of the advisory panel of that company, which Breitling bought, as they did buy Gallet as well. Vulcain, which made alarm watches, has not done a whole lot in recent years, but they were worn by almost every president since Harry
Mm.
Truman. Really cool history, just awesome watches. So there's a bunch of those brands that are, like the TP Mills and Tadmore of
That's just
putter.
it. These
Totally.
references are
Yeah.
great because it makes so much sense when you.
Mhm.
Parker had a great, and I got to get a photo with Bobby Grace, and I was like, I mean, for me, it was the first time I met Bobby. Parker had played golf with him, but I was like, how many people in this building know who Bobby Grace is? Probably not that many, but he was so huge in the 90s and making putters for Nick Price, and VJ Singh was using one, and I had an amazing Grace I bought
Mhm.
back when that was the hot putter on the PGA Tour for a while. So, and a bunch of wins with those. Greg Chalmers, I think, used one. A bunch of people.
He has so his car has his tag. He's moved up here to North Carolina and he puts a number of wins on his car tag. I
Oh,
think he's at 215. So his car tag is 215 wins.
wow,
Nice.
that's sick.
That's pretty
Pretty
We
cool.
good.
gotta get him some more wins, so he's got to get a new
I
license
think he
plate.
did. I swear, I think it was 214. And then I think he had somebody won somewhere with it and he got to count it. But
That's amazing.
yeah, it's been cool to have him in the mountains in North Carolina.
That's so cool.
If you've been listening to the For Love of Golf podcast, you know that we've been spending some time in our cricket apparel. And it just kind of fits with what we're about at For Love of Golf, right? It's comfortable, it's got awesome style, it's a fun company, kind of an easy vibe, and the clothes kind of go with that, right? You can wear them on and off the course. That's just one of the reasons why we're excited to have Cricket as the official apparel provider of the For Love of Golf podcast. We are genuinely really enjoying the gear, and if you're thinking about refreshing your closet a bit, we'd definitely tell you to give Cricket a look. Feels good, looks good, kind of goes with the stuff we love about the game, right? Give them a chance. Go get some Cricket gear. Use the coupon code FORLOVE of 19. It'll let them know we sent you, and see what you think. Let us know. Cricket shirts, go check them out.
So for somebody that is trying to get into vintage watch collecting, is there a particular brand or a particular model that is good for entry level collectors, and why would that be?
Um, it It just depends. So I say vintage watch collecting, it's not unlike if you're looking at investing in the stock market. I was just helping. We gave my son Charlie like $1,000 for Christmas to invest. And it was like, what stocks are you going to pick with this? And it's a long only fund, as you put it. We're not shorting stocks or companies here. So it's a long only $1,000. What do you want to invest in? And I was like, well, you can go a bunch of different ways, but we the best kind of approach, at least that I've benefited from since I began with my 401(k) and all this stuff, was like Apple has been very good to me. Amazon's been good to me over the last 10 plus years. Like, you know, these are big companies that are kind of critical. Like, I don't feel like you can go wrong with them. For me in the world of watches, that's Omega, or sorry, not Omega, Rolex. It's not so much Omega. So Omega might be more like some other company that is like, I don't know, you worry about an industry that might die out. So, but Rolex is the S&P 500 kind of company, and you you can't really go wrong. You can get vintage Rolex watches. We sell them, men's sizes 34 millimeter for as low as like $4,900 for an Air King that's unpolished. You can't go wrong with that watch. It's a beautiful watch. You could wear it every day the rest of your life and be very happy. So that is one, certainly one watch to consider. A Datejust is also great. You can go up if you can a little bit to like the sport models, the Mariners, maybe $10,000 and up, or GMT Masters, etc. So those are what I would kind of recommend is like a stable value, always very liquid. You can sell it for kind of close to what you paid. There's not going to be this huge spread. You get into other brands like Omega, and it's like, there's not nearly as many buyers for them. It's a great product in many respects, but there's going to be a huge spread between what someone might pay you for the watch after you buy it
Hmm.
versus the retail price. Not unlike collecting TP Mills handmade versus a Scotty Cameron handmade or
Amen.
whatever other brand. There's just even with a Scotty Cameron handmade, if it's a good one, Bill Vogan, he'll buy it for other people. But if it's like a TP Mills handmade, I don't know who's really buying those. They're sick, but it's
I love them. I think they're so
I
underrated. That's a
I
good
know you do.
good
You're the only
comparison.
person
Yep.
I see posting about them. It's
Yeah, they're so good. Um, okay, so I want to talk about some of your time just like in different parts of the watch world because you've seen so many really cool like singular watches, right? And I have had this recurring dream. This is gonna make me sound even worse, but where I like go into like some antique shop or something, and there's like a whole rack of really rare putters sitting in there, and they're like dirt cheap. Okay, so I've had this like multiple times in various forms. So
yeah.
I'm wondering for you, like, what's the most like unexpected place that you've found a really rare watch?
Yeah, for me, people always ask me, how do you find your watches? Do you go into Goodwill stores and like all that stuff? And it's like, no, but there are people whose strategy is doing that, like the pickers in any
So,
world. Pickers for rare sports memorabilia or for video games or comic books or whatever. Like every field has its pickers. It's the same with watches. People that scour and go to pawn shops and everything else. I early on reached out to every single Rolex retailer in the United States, which is just over 1,000, and was trying to introduce myself and say, if you ever get any rare watches, let me know. We can work together in a few different ways. I can just buy it from you. We can partner at 50-50, and I can oversee any service restoration that's needed and then sell it. Or, those are the two main ways. Or, I can make an offer, kind of whatever I say I buy it at. Maybe I prefer to be able to see the watch in person before I make the offer if they trust me with it, just to confirm that the condition is what it looks like in photos, which can be different with these things because even like the luminous material that glows in the dark, if that's scraped off and repainted, that can vary the value by 90%. So, yeah, that's like one thing. So I've got people texting me photos all the time. I've got pickers I know who are texting me photos of stuff they see on eBay. I've got eBay alerts and other small auction alerts. And um, I'm not gonna ever probably find a watch just walking around an antique mall or something like that. But I certainly know enough people that come to me that might be doing that themselves, that we do find stuff that way. But it's really an army trying to find things because they're so rare to find. I've got to
And
have all
yeah,
these. I got to have these pickers start texting me putter photos now and it's at garage sales and
that's right.
stuff.
That's
That's what
right.
I need, actually.
That's the truth.
So maybe if we can get you telling some more stories, what are what's the coolest story around provenance that you've encountered with a watch?
I mean, there's some crazy ones for sure. There was I mean, just as one I wasn't involved in, but Neil Armstrong was given a gold Omega Speedmaster along with all the Apollo and Mercury and Gemini astronauts, basically, after we went to the moon. Uh, and so there was a special dinner in November 1969. No one knew what happened to Neil's watch. Somehow it ended up in like a stove in a house in Random, Ohio. And I went because of the gold value to a local jeweler gold scrapper who bought it. And then someone I know who's essentially a picker going around all the time just happened to go into that jewelry store and ask if he had anything interesting. And he's like, well, I just got this. And he sold it to him for supposedly like $10,000 or something. Then they had to embark on kind of a multi-year, um, you know, just try to discover like the provenance. How the heck did it get in like, this derelict building? Well, it's probably, I think someone got it and they were like into drugs or something else and whatever. So it ended up there, and the owner was able to get in touch with one of Neil Armstrong's sons and basically agree to give him half of the proceeds when it went for sale at auction. And it sold for $2 million. So still a great return on investment. And basically, $1 million went to charities, and then he got to keep the million, and Uncle Sam got its part. But it's all a good return on investment for $10,000 or whatever it was. Um,
Man.
it's just you never know where this stuff's gonna turn up. I wrote a story about a very unusual watch called the LaCultre Deep Sea Alarm that was found in a Goodwill for $5.99 back in 2014. The owner posted it on a Facebook group that I saw around that time. I wrote him and said, "Do you know how much that's worth?" And he said, "I don't know, like $1,000." And I said, "No, I think it's at least $20,000." And he said, "No, no, no." Like, what? I should probably take it off my wrist. It was on this really cheap, leather strap, which is how he purchased it. And I ended up connecting him with someone, and he got basically $35,000 plus a Speedmaster that was worth $4,000 at the time. And that allowed him to buy his fiance a vehicle so she didn't have to take the bus to work and pay for their wedding. And it went viral as a story. Like millions of people saw it. It was people were stopping him at the mall saying, "Are you Zach?" And there were hundreds of people going to that Goodwill in Arizona looking for watches. Of course, it was picked over, but as a result of that, um, Goodwill changed their policy. So they do these online auctions now for watches
Mhm.
based out of Hawaii, and they're hotly viewed, obviously. But basically, any interesting watches, they just, as a matter of practice, send to be listed online. And there was some watches on there have sold for over $50,000, rare vintage watches that were literally donated. So it's something people scour religiously.
That's really cool. That's wild. That might be the answer to this question that I'm about to ask. But obviously, certain watches can spark emotions for owners, inheritance, or collectors. What maybe another story that you've come across? What's like the most emotional moment that you've seen in a watch transaction?
It's a great question. I mean, there was one kind of great story. I mean, there's many, but a few. One was when I was at Christie's, a gentleman had realized that a watch he had been given by his mom, basically, for his college graduation from West Point was quite valuable. And he had basically on his college graduation from West Point gotten a Rolex Daytona, which happened to be a Paul Newman Daytona, rare, very rare model, and like his dad's K-bar knife or something like that, like he had used in the Vietnam War. And this gentleman had graduated in the 80s. Um, so he had worn that watch literally throughout his entire military career, including in special forces, etc. And he said, the things that if that watch could talk, it was like jumping out of airplanes, doing all kinds of crazy
Yeah.
stuff. Meanwhile, then it's worth over $100,000. So um, he didn't, he realized that. And my colleague Brandon Frazen and I were talking with him, trying to convince him to sell it, of course, with us. But his son was about to go to college, and he decided to consign it just not be just to help his son pay for college
Yeah.
basically. And he didn't he was like, my dad would think this is insane. He paid like $200 for this watch in 1969 or whatever, and then he had passed away. So
Mm.
that was very cool because he was in the back of the room with his wife and son and daughter, and like it was just a very special moment. He had given my colleague Brandon and I his military like shirt, and each of us got a shirt from his unit, and it was like just a really special. He was a very upbeat, positive experience.
Mm. Yeah, that's awesome.
That's a cool story.
Yeah,
Um,
I've never told that before, so that's good.
hey, we're scooping the exclusive right here. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
Appreciate that.
exactly. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
friends helping friends.
yeah,
Um, okay, so I'm gonna bring up a putter reference here, and we're gonna skew from something that made you feel really good to something that's negative. Uh, so I still think back on this putter that I did not buy, Nike prototype that was made for Tiger. Had a COA, saying it was made for Tiger. He had tested it out, and decided not to use it or something like that. This is probably back in, I'm gonna say 2015 to 2017, something like that. And it was really cool. And I don't think it had Tiger's name, but I think it had the TW logo, maybe on the
Oh,
neck
cool.
stamped
Yeah,
on there.
yeah.
It was really cool. And it was pretty plain. And it went for an obscenely low amount of money for what it was. I think it went for maybe $1,200 or $1,500 for one that was actually made for it and used by Tiger.
Hmm.
And oh, that's the putter that I look back on and I'm like, I should have figured out a way to buy that at the time. I
Yeah.
probably just didn't have the money and so I'm asking you, and if you have a putter answer to that, I'd love to know that too. But is there a watch and or a putter that you look back on and you're like, man, I really wish I would have or could have bought that at the time?
Um, I find the with the putters, it's hard because I really feel like I want to set the putter down and see how it sits, like before I roll it. I bought a couple,
You sound
like,
like a tour player.
yeah, like yeah, exactly.
I'm a
But like
collector. You're a tour
but
player.
like the beaches, a few of them I bought from um Golden Age. It's like you put it down and I feel like the toe flops over and I'm like, dude, like what? I wouldn't have ever used that. Like what the heck's going on? I wouldn't have bought
That's a
that.
bummer.
But then I'm
Yeah.
like, there's others that I wish I could have tried. I might have gone for it if I put it down and liked it. So yeah, just that's an interesting phenomenon. I've realized collecting putters the last kind of year or two. Like, I wish I should just try to fly out. Where are they located even?
I think they're in Boston.
Yeah.
I know Ryan kind of I think he goes
Runs
back and
around.
forth maybe from Boston. So I'm not sure where they've
I was
got
like,
that stuff. I want to say it's up there.
yeah, I think so. But I'm like, I've got to just fly up there if they'll let me and like spend an hour looking at putters
Yeah.
and like, setting them down
Listen,
and
I'm gonna bid on these,
rolling them.
okay? I just need to set them down first.
Yeah.
You can
Uh,
understand, right?
but yeah, that so on the putter thing, it for me is like, man, maybe it was really good. I don't know, but I kind of want to roll like one putt with it and see how it feels and sounds. The watches, I mean, there's a number always of stories of things, but like probably the most interesting slash egregious was in 2021. I had a client who was wanting to sell an FP Journe. That was one of the first 20 tourbillons he made
Mhm.
and part of this like subscription series. So they're all numbered on the dial. This exact watch had sold in 2015 for 161,000 Swiss francs, which was about $161,000 at that time. And by 2021, so literally just 5 years later, we were going to be able to sell it for 950,000. So you would say, okay, well,
Mm.
that's a great return for 5 years, obviously. But if I had just held on to it for 5 more months, it would have been worth 2.95 million.
Oh.
One came up for auction in November that went for over three, and everyone wanted it then. So uh, I am always like, if I had just held on to it and played golf for 5 months, I would have been a happy camper and
Ugh.
lowered my handicap. But the that was like you just don't have a crystal ball. That watch today is probably worth. I was talking with someone about that very watch today. Is probably worth $5 million. So literally from 2021, from in a decade from 2016 to 2026, it's gone from 161,000 to $5 million. It's unbelievable. But
How do you try to predict that kind of stuff? Or how do you try
you
to stay ahead?
can't.
I know you can't, but like, how do
Yeah.
you try to stay ahead of some of that stuff in your world? I mean, it's similar with putters too. Like, you don't know obviously when it's going to happen, and world events and stuff like that
Yeah.
can make it
Yeah.
happen. Obviously, that was probably that one a little bit too. But how do you try to stay on top of that?
There is no way to exactly except the like buy what you really love kind of model. And I know like Parker is hoping that tailor-made nubbins and like TP Mills handmaids take off and then he can retire. But I know that might happen. You never know.
Never
But
know. The nubbins. What a great one.
You got a, you
Basketball.
got you got a lot of
Oh,
random ones like Lahasi, and you got a lot of good ones like that. Random ones.
we'll get into the
uh,
boutique putter makers too.
but the you don't know. But like even certain like Rolex models, like the one, not to keep harping on the watch I have now, but it's like a gilt dial, very excellent condition, special. Like these watches were 40 to 45,000, and then they suddenly, in great condition, you can get like as much as 90,000 for them, kind of in a year or 18-month period. They almost doubled. So you just, it happens in all these different fields, whether it's cars, certain cars really take off and everyone wants them and they spike in like literally a 6 month to 1 year front time frame. It just has to be that there's enough people that want them and something reprices the market, which in the world of watches is often auctions. There's a kind of an interesting Patek. Philippe perpetual calendar, just again to show you recent history. We had sold three of them with this what's called a Doré dial, which is a very attractive gold and pink dial. In August 2024 for 180 to 190,000. I just happened to get like three in a row. And then one of the people that bought them in August 2024 wanted to sell it last August to help pay for a home renovation. We sold it for 290,000. So that's a fantastic return for 1 year of ownership. But by December, one that was way inferior went in an auction in New York for 690,000. So the guy who sold it for 290, who made, almost 100K, was like, geez, if I had held it
Felt
just,
like you lost
you
400.
know,
Yeah.
4 more months, I
Yeah.
could have gotten another, 400. And then it's, it's, you know, that it's nuts now. It could be worth even more because a lot more people are aware of it than there were even in December. It could be an 800, 900K watch, but it's wild. It's really wild.
Yeah. Along kind of those similar lines, and maybe it's a little bit dependent on just the person and what they want to do with it. But when does a watch become art or become a display instead of something that you wear? Is that dependent on the person, or is that kind of is there a little bit of a natural kind of line in the sand there?
No, I mean, different collectors have different lines about what they're comfortable wearing, like out and about, or what their insurance allows them to wear, obviously. Most collectors do wear their watches. Obviously, if they're a pocket watch collector, they don't really wear those. Those are just staying in the safe or shelf or whatever. But yeah, most collectors do want to wear their watches, and it's a common thing for them to wear even $1 million plus watches out there.
Gosh, I would be so worried. I guess if you're in that, you're not having to worry about it though,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it's
If
all
it's
right.
insured too, like then, if it's still
What's
not,
insurance going to cover?
I mean, whatever you set it for, so you could
But
set
I'm
it for that, but
but like what kind of like damage? I mean, theft. I mean,
yeah,
and
theft
that's
for
a big
sure
thing
though.
now,
They'll
right? I
theft
mean, that's
they will cover. It's whether your policy covers damage or what that looks like specifically. But yeah, it's a serious thing. Many companies won't necessarily insure you to wear $1 million watch around. It has to be a very high premium to cover that kind of behavior. That also depends on where you live, etc.
yeah. I know people are getting robbed and mugged, and uh, it's becoming a kind of a pattern almost in some areas with certain watches for sure.
Oh yeah, it's you have to be smart about what you're wearing. A client of mine was even robbed inside Arthur Ashe Stadium in New York at the US Open.
Wow.
These people had created a distraction, and he had an Aquanaut, which is a Patek Philippe with a rubber strap. These guys basically had a box cutter that had sliced it off his wrist, and he didn't realize when they kind of created this choke point in a hallway. And then he looks, and then suddenly someone's running off, and he looks down, and there's no watch on his wrist, and they ran out of the stadium. So it's tricky for sure.
Wow.
Well, switching gears towards some modern watchmakers, which brands do you think are doing the best job in terms of design?
Um, Design is a big issue for me. A lot of times, the watchmakers I feel like or companies are out of touch with what people actually want. Um, but obviously, Rolex does an amazing job. They kind of keep it simple. Omega is not doing that well as a brand right now, and I think it's just they've got to simplify some of their designs. Um, I like the independent watchmakers, not unlike the kind of artisanal putter makers.
Stole my next question.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
No,
but
you're good.
Josh Shapiro is an amazing watchmaker based in California. He's made the first fully made in America watch since 1969. It's called the Resurgence, it wasn't something I thought we would see in the US for a long time. It's because of the amount of R&D and work in developing your own movement. It costs like usually $2 million plus to kind of come up with your own caliber, etc. So those are amazing watches. They retail for $70,000 and up, but that's, as he's told me, like that's pretty much his cost to make one. It's like he can only make two per month, and he's just breaking even kind of at those prices. So that is those are awesome, great design. They have a guilloche dial that's intricate, like takes many, many, many hours to make the dial. Um, so that's like a great kind of dressy, more dressy watch. It's not something you're going to wear in the pool or anything like that. Um, but yeah, I think, you got to look at what the purpose of the watch is and uh, how you want to wear it and its intended use. And yeah, that's it.
So I'll get to my next question. No, I was gonna say just I do like the independent and boutique putter makers are something that for me I enjoy. I mean, I think there's guys that do um, really good work. I think there's some that probably um, stand out above others just because of the way they do things. I mean, there's a new company that's out that's um, seems to be doing a really good job for somebody that's just coming along there. It's like O and Co, OW and Co. We had them on the Flat Stick Focus podcast, and they're just doing like really nice stuff and really capable. They're really capable of doing a lot for somebody that's like pretty new to doing all this. So,
Amazing.
obviously going back to what you were saying, and you said you were talking about Josh, but what are some other kind of independent watchmakers that you think are really doing things that are kind of changing the way that people are going to collect in the future? I mean, I know that's a very it's even more niche than the putter world because the an independent maker in the putter world, it might run $600 to $1,500, whereas you're talking about entry point at $70,000 for the one you're talking about. But
Yeah.
so it is a little different lane. But who are some of the people that are you know pretty new that you seem to really like what they're doing right now?
I love Peterman Beda. They're two young watchmakers in their 30s or so. They're old friends of mine, but they basically came up working for Patek and then Lange as, young watchmakers making very high-end watches. And then their dream was to start their own company. So it's been fun to kind of see them from when they first started and like took the leap of faith to start to now they're pretty celebrated. They've won awards. They've got a multi-year long wait list. I'm kicking myself for not getting on it early on, but they offered me like a spot at the beginning, and I was like, I didn't have like 30,000 spare dollars to spend, and now that watch is worth like 300,000 plus. But
But could you have sold it at that point though? You make yourself feel a little better. They're your
yeah,
friends, right? You
yeah,
wouldn't have sold it.
exactly. I wouldn't have sold it anyways. But it's just those are beautiful watches. They're coming out with great super high-end complications, and I really like them. Obviously, as people, we've had a lot of meals together over the years in Geneva. So those are great. I've met a lot of the other guys as well. Some of them, again, like young watchmakers that their watches retailed for 60,000 and they sell for 900,000 on the secondary market, which to me is like, it's cool, but it's super hyped. You can't really justify those values with like a simple time only watch. Um, it's just kind of insane and it's very, very, very hyped.
How about
So
Rexep?
that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, I like them. They're great watches. Obviously, like I said, they were 60,000 initially kind of retail, but they've sold for over 900 at auction. Uh, and when you're talking about those kind of levels, it's like, what else could you buy? Is it really the craftsmanship worth that much? He's making watches every year. like he's a living artist, if you will. So there's not like George Daniels, who's kind of the original independent watchmaker. He operated for about 40 years independently and he only made 34 watches, two wristwatches, because he made like one per year. So there's no more of those that are coming to market after he passed away around 2011 or so. That was it. So that's a different ballgame.
Wow.
I was wondering, sorry to jump in there, Justin. Um, One of the first times I even paid attention to an expensive watch other than a Rolex was um, some years ago when I guess it was sort of a big deal when Rafael Nadal
Yeah.
was debuting a certain watch, I think at the French Open, and it
Hmm.
was just, oh, here's this $1 million watch. And so I've just out of curiosity started, looking up that particular maker. Um, and the values on some of those are obscene.
Yeah.
Is that
Oh,
is
yeah.
that mostly because of the branding with Rafa, or is it just how unique and well made they are? Or is it a little bit of both? Like what and where do they fit into like your world? Do you come across those very often to buy them or sell them, or is that a whole
Yeah.
different market?
It's funny. It's almost an entirely different market. In 8 years of selling watches, selling many thousands of watches. I've sold one Richard Mille. So that tells you it's
Yeah.
like a totally separate market. I guess it's like comparing Scotty Cameron's versus like tailor-made Spider tour collectors or something. Like they're very different segments. So the I'm working on getting another. I'm not going to turn down, money, trying to get this other one on consignment. But when they started out as a company, like I wish I could find this article. Like it was scrubbed from the internet, but basically Richard Mille was like our average price point is going to be $12,000, like all this sort of stuff. And their average price point is like $400,000 or $300,000 now. So it's been an incredible thing. Richard Mille is not really a watchmaker himself. He's just a designer who's been in the watch industry, obviously knows watches, but he had a very specific point of view. It's not, I don't ever aspire to own one personally or wear one. That's how I feel like most of my clients are. The totally different kind of segment of buyers that think that's the coolest thing. And those Richard Mille people are like purely Richard Mille people, RM people. They don't own any other watches, basically. And the other like Rolex Patek people are not typically RM. It's really two circles of collectors. They don't really even touch in
Interesting.
The Venn diagram. But yeah, everyone's always like, that's so hyped up. How can these watches be like these kind of prices? Who are buying them? And it's hard to fathom sometimes, but they do have a super dedicated following and
Yeah.
guys feel like they're, kings of the universe when they wear those watches. So they keep buying them and they seem to, hold their value in a certain sense, obviously. So people keep buying.
Yeah, and
Are
didn't
they some of the most expensive? I mean, or are there other?
As a brand with average retail value, it is probably one of the highest. You've
Okay.
got obviously brands like Patek that can kind of stretch from in the 20s retail at the entry point or 30s all the way up to 2 million plus. So you've got a range there, but there are like all Sapphire Richard Milles that are 2 million plus retail as well. So it's crazy.
I mean, I
and
just Google Richard Mill and people are asking 4 million, 6 million. Like, I don't know if
Yeah.
that's just because
Yeah, yeah.
they want to see if they
No, I
can get
think
it or if they
yeah,
actually sell for that.
not really at auction, but they supposedly sell privately for those amounts. And I
Mm,
was just referring to the retail
okay.
price that
Yeah.
you can sell watches for 2 million plus and have no problem selling them, which is insane. Same
Yeah.
thing with Tech. Uh, they don't make a ton of them at that price point, obviously, but it's crazy.
Yeah, because I mean, I heard you say the watch from who was it for the
Neil Armstrong.
astronaut? Yeah, that
Yeah.
sold for 2 million. And so then I
Yeah.
think, obviously that sold because of provenance, but these just seem to sell because
What
it's
they
just,
are. Yeah, there's no
yeah,
provenance.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's nuts. There
And
are FP Jorans, hitting that price range now. There was one that is a relatively new watch he made for Francis Ford Coppola a few years ago and gave to him as a gift that Francis needed to sell because he's having severe financial troubles post his Metropolis movie.
Metropolis, yeah.
And it went for $10 million in December. The record for a vintage wristwatch is Paul Newman's Paul Newman Daytona in 2017. Paul had given it to his daughter's boyfriend who was helping him build a tree fort uh, back in the 1980s, just as a gift because he asked the gentleman, do you know the time? And this gentleman, James Cox, didn't know the time because he wasn't wearing a watch. So Paul said, why don't you have my watch? It keeps pretty good time if you remember to wind it. Well, fast forward 20 years and 30 years really, and the watch sold for 17.8 million at auction. Um, there's, and I feel like we're on the high end of the market. There's such demand and hype that I feel like we're going to see bigger and bigger numbers there.
Hmm,
Well, and
interesting.
not to bring this fully back around, but there's just the golf connection there too with Richard Mille, because Bubba Watson was
Yes,
really in on that very early, I think,
he was.
um, t doing basically like testing for him too a little bit, maybe wasn't he, just to see like how it could react to playing in it and testing it out as one of the early athletes I think he had.
He was. Yeah, and it was kind of funny. Like Bubba was not that even well known on the tour at the time. And then he's wearing this watch. He was Richard Mille did a good job saying like, oh, these elite athletes are testing it, but you can test all that stuff in the lab. Like they already knew in the lab how it would perform. So there was zero testing. It was just like throwing a watch on his wrist.
Some
Uh,
good marketing work.
it was, and they picked like kind of lower tier people and different athletes in different sports, like this guy Pablo McDonough for polo, and like they didn't even pick Usain Bolt. They picked another Jamaican runner, Johan Blake, to wear a watch and be an ambassador, and like they didn't have to pay these guys much at all, and they didn't even get to keep their watches. They just like I don't know what they paid them, but they would pick like very second tier people and across every sport, bicycling, running, everything, and golf, and then strap watches on and get a huge amount of press. It was an incredible return on investment.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were rapping about Bubba Watson.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, it was hilarious.
That's like the testing videos you see from random equipment manufacturer, like the promotional videos, like tour guy on range testing the new equipment when you know they've like either they're not actually playing that driver, they're playing an older model, or they've done that way before that. That's for
Exactly.
sure.
They're part of the validation process of a driver that's already 10,000 have been made and distributed to every golf store
Exactly.
uh, before any tour players did it.
Exactly.
We were bringing up auctions. So, one of the fun thing about auctions is that sometimes you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
What's the wildest moment that you've ever witnessed live in an auction?
Yeah, for me, one of the crazy moments was I was at Christie's. We got, you get emails every single day with people sending in photos of their watches or photos of whatever collecting category, and then the appropriate person's looking at it and giving them an auction estimate. And this gentleman wrote in with like a document of 30 plus watches. There's nothing really interesting in there. A lot of like $2,000, $3,000 watches, but nice, but typically not something Christie's would go through the effort to do. But in the list, is a Patek Philippe that is rose gold that has these little pearl hour markers on the dial. And that's something you don't see. You sometimes see diamond hour markers or ruby, very rarely like sapphires, rubies, things like that, but never have seen pearls. So then you see something like that and you think maybe this is an aftermarket thing where someone glued pearls on the dial or something. Like, why would you do that? But we asked the owner, how did you get this watch? And he said, the ruler of Bahrain gave it to me. Well, Bahrain is known for their pearls. So then you're like, well, either someone in Bahrain glued these on, or maybe he asked Patek to make it that way. And it was rose gold, very interesting watch. So we basically, my colleague Brandon and I rent a zip car and drive out to see him in Connecticut. And he's quite old and he's downsizing. Uh, and was like, we're gonna move to Florida. I've got all this stuff, and my watches were among the items in here, and furniture and all these things. And I would love for you to sell it if you want so I can get more money for my move. So we open up the watch. Inside on these watches, most watches, there's a movement number that's quite small, and then there's a case number on the inside case back, which in this case you snap off with a knife. It's kind of like compresses on. So we take photos of those. We order an extract from the archives of Patek Philippe. That's like at the time was $150. You send the photos of the watch, and they send you a document back saying their records of the watch in terms of when it was made and any details about the watch. And it comes back that it did have seed pearl hour markers. So it's a pretty incredible new discovery. We do more research. There's a photo of this watch in the archives, but no additional information really about it. And it's hard to price, even for like experts like us. This watch without the pearl hour markers would be worth $10,000 to 15,000 or $8 to $12,000. It's kind of small. But we said, okay, we'll put it in. He's happy that we're taking it. He would have been happy if we put it at even $5 to $10,000, but we decided to put it at $10 to $15,000. And we nicknamed it the Pearl of Bahrain, which is a great
Yeah. Yeah.
name. I came up with it with my wife, Christine. We were bouncing around ideas when we were making the bed one day in the morning. And she said, yeah, that's great. You got to have a name for this watch because it's going to make it sell much better. So we decided to name it the Pearl of Bahrain. It turns out that our auction, which is in December 2015, the auction date is on Bahrain National Day, which is the equivalent of our July 4th. And we wrote a great article about the history of pearls in Bahrain. It's considered like the richest part of their heritage, etc. They got press in the Middle East, etc. So, we know it's going to do better than 10 to 15, but like going into it, I don't know, maybe 50, like, that's what I would have guessed. Um, Again, we're talking about a very small, like 33 millimeter watch, very feminine looking, not really like a man's watch, given the size and the pearls. And this guy, by the way, never wore the watch. He was like, I thought it was really ugly. Like, when am I going to wear this watch? That's why it was also in such great condition, never polished, never serviced, anything. So we basically put it in toward the end of the auction at Christie's. When you're a specialist, you're on the phone bidding with people, and they essentially give you a sheet that is who the people you are going to call for each lot, and they give you a little gap between each, so it's not like you're hanging up here and then have to call within 10 seconds to get the next person. But like 5 minutes, 10 minutes before the slot, you've got two phone banks that are on the sides and then the auctioneers in the center. People start flooding into the room that are Christie's employees from the other departments, from art and antiquities, all these things. So I'm like thinking, just kind of perplexed, like, why are there so many people coming into the room? Well, they're all phone bidders on the slot. It was like a record for for a watch auction of phone bidders, but partially because we did such a low estimate, a lot of people thought they were going to get it for like ten to $15,000, unfortunately. But it ends up being a huge battle between the client I was on the phone with and another person. It goes for over 10 minutes and it ends up going for $440,000. So it was unbelievable. Of course, the owner was thrilled, and his wife, and it was a really special moment. So it was, it's one of those things. But at the time, we weren't really sure if the watch was unique, but since then, another one has been discovered. That was
Hmm.
also a gift from the ruler of Bahrain, but that also went for over $300,000. And there, I had heard rumors there's another one out there, so there's seems to be at least three in existence. But it's really,
Hmm.
really cool.
I have to go on vacation over there and see if I can befriend this guy.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
just a quick question, as you mentioned about estimates, like how does that work in the watch world as an employee? Like, was there ever like some was there ever a backlash if you like missed on estimates? Like, is that a how big a
People
deal is it?
No, people don't care if you go too low and then it goes high. Like everyone wants to do that. Now, there's like some that get to the point of absurdity. You want to give some guidance about something, but when you have a real wild card of a watch, you obviously it's better to price it low. They call them teaser estimates sometimes, where it's like a teaser, which was you know, that happened kind of with the Pearl of Bahrain, but we didn't even know how to price it. And the owner
Right.
wanted it to sell for sure. He didn't want it to come back to him. He just wanted to get the money and move on with his life. So it's tricky. But you just kind of do your best and let the market determine where it goes.
In your opinion, what's the most important watch ever sold at auction?
There is an important Patek Philippe. It's a pocket watch. It took them about 7 years to produce, called the Henry Graves Super Complication is the name for the watch. It first sold in 1999. It sold previously, but in 99 at Sotheby's it went for 11 million, which was like a mind-blowing amount. It was the most complicated watch on the market for about 50 years. So from like 1937 or so until 1989 when Patek used a computer to finally beat it. Um, so that's incredible. It's then came back to market. This is another kind of insane story, but the owner ran into debts. He was part of the Qatari royal family, and um, he ran into problems and ended up having to sell it, but the day before the auction he died. So it was like what's going to happen, but it sold in 2014 for 24 million. Um just unbelievable.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
wild.
Not quite the same as putters.
No, no. Except Tiger Woods putter. Maybe that's $100 million putter people
That's
say.
an expensive putter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we're gonna wrap up here before we get into some rapid fire questions. But since this is a golf podcast and we've done a pretty good job of trying to make some golf analogies, um,
Yeah.
do you see very much crossover in the luxury watch collecting world and like golf equipment? I mean, I know, at least from my perspective, there's a lot of crossover with watches and like aviation or, various other worlds. Do you tend to see some of the same people in luxury watches in golf or not so much?
I think there's definitely watch collectors who like golf, but I don't see a huge overlap between serious collectors and golf. And I'll tell
Hmm.
you, like we began 2 years ago doing like a retreat for maybe our top 10 collectors or so in Palm Beach. And uh, we did like a golf tournament, and it's like about half of them want to play, but like some people play, this is their like one round a year. So they're all like very busy. sometimes I feel the same way. I'm glad my son plays because it forces me to get out. I do love it. I just rarely have time to play 18 holes. But uh, I think it's kind of minimal overlap. I would
Interesting.
say. Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna get into some rapid fire here. We don't have many. I think we each have basically one question. So, um, you've seen a lot of watches, sold a lot of watches, worn a lot of watches. What is currently like I don't want to use this grail watch, but like the watch that you're like the next one that you want to add to your own collection?
That's a hard question, but I've always loved the Rolex Explorer reference 1016, and I keep getting them and then I keep selling them kind of thing for whatever reason. So finding a great one that I want to keep and wear every day. I even had one like a month ago I ended up selling. But like so it's like, well, someone wants it and it's like kind of a plain Jane watch. It's the beauty is its simplicity, but it's basically just a black dial, smooth bezel, and a 369 dial. Um, I've probably had like 10 personal examples over the last 6 years, but wear it for a month and then someone buys it and I'm like, okay, I'll find another one. So that's one of those watches. I keep looking for one that I'll keep for a long time rather than like sell it after a month or two.
This is a quick follow-up. Are you a birth year watch guy? Do you do any of that for yourself?
I don't really like the concept, and I'll tell you why. Like, whenever I hear, we used to get peppered every day with, I want a birth year sub, I want a birth year this. And there's two problems. One, the people looking to just check a box are never going to buy another vintage watch. So you spend a lot of time and effort, and they're never going to. Why is that the case? Well, they're looking at the wrong criteria. That's not the criteria for a collector. The criteria for collector is I want to find the best condition possible of the best example I can afford or want to own. And let me study what that is. Like for me, I prefer 1960s Submariners way more than 1980s Submariners when I was born because the cases are more interesting, the bezel inserts look a lot better, and all that sort of stuff. Everything changed a lot by the 80s. The bracelets are thicker, it feels more like a modern watch, which can be good for some people, but for me, like I like the very thin bracelets, etc. So, yeah. So, anyways, I think I encourage people not to just pick an arbitrary criteria. The second aspect is we actually don't know when these watches were made. For Rolex in particular, you're guessing. And uh, all of the dating charts were just guesses by collectors. There's wide disagreements between different dating charts. The information you can get is sometimes like you have a watch that was made in 1958 that was not sold until 1965. You can tell when watches were tested for Rolex until the late 1960s because they had a chronometer certificate, which was by the Swiss government. And you sometimes see this watch. Suppose the case would have been made, for instance, in 1966, but it says it wasn't even tested until 1968, and then it was sold in like 1970. So you have a 4 year difference between when the case was made to when the watch was actually sold. So what's the birth year? Is it 66 when the case was made, 68 when it was tested, or 70 when it was sold? Um, these watches, I saw one watch that was sat in a store for 14 years. And it was finally sold 14 years after it had been to the store. So you just, it's hard to define it by a birth
Hmm.
year.
Good point.
Yeah, yeah.
What brand deserves more respect than it gets?
It's tricky because there are so many brands I love. I love vintage Heuer watches, which is the predecessor of Tag Heuer. They really have fantastic racing history, technical history of, being used in yacht races, etc. They're mostly chronographs and timing devices. So I think for a lot of people, when they think of Heuer, they think of like, modern Tag Heuer, whatever, not super high end, but I love the vintage watches. Like literally most Formula One drivers use them from the late 60s to the 70s, not really because of so much a sponsorship, but by choice. And yeah, they're amazing watches.
I gotta go off script here. I gotta ask one golf question since
Yeah,
you're a golfer.
please.
What this is one I feel like we've been asking everyone, so I want your opinion. What's your favorite golf course and then best
It's not a
round or like
rollback question, is it?
favorite? No, it's not a rollback. I think I know the answer to that one for sure. If he's into vintage watches, I feel like there's a Venn diagram there potentially. But what is your favorite golf course and then your favorite round you've ever played? It doesn't have to be best round score wise, just favorite round.
And it kind of go hand in hand for me. I mean, there's two, but I guess my favorite golf course I've ever played was Pine Valley, which I played 2 summers ago. That was just such a special experience and was a lot. It was just a really fun day, and the club was like, wow, it is so fun.
Mm.
Really special. And have you been out there? Any of you by chance?
No, I have not. That's definitely one on the list for sure. I don't think any of us here have played that one. That would be a good one for sure.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then probably favorite round was playing Oakmont with my son 2 years ago, which was fun because it was the year before the US Open. We went to the US Open this past year, but they were getting ready for that. Obviously, the greens are so fast, and it was fun to be there with my son and with our host, who's a friend, and then Ben Clymer, who started Hodinkee and kind of got me started into the world of vintage watches. It was
Mm.
an awesome foursome, and we were kind of joking around and like, you got to play fast there. So we're like running and moving quick, yeah,
Mm.
trying to make sure we kept up with the group ahead of us. It was a lot of fun. The caddies were great. Caddies can really help determine around too how fun it is and their personality. So in both cases, those rounds had great caddies too.
Yeah, no, not an easy place to necessarily play fast. It's as difficult as it is.
Yeah, it's difficult and you can't mess around.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What are your four if we can do a round robin here, Parker, starting with you?
Hmm. I love asking these questions. I
Yeah,
hate answering them.
for sure.
Yeah.
You're never good at
I'm
this. You ask him
so
four and he's
bad.
gonna give you 10.
Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
is the problem. Um, my favorite golf course. Gosh, I don't know. I'd probably if it's just coming down to like favorite for the experience versus like best
Yeah. Well,
layout.
what if you could, I guess the question how I would word it, if you could play you could only play one golf
Mm,
course the rest of your life, what would it be?
mm.
Mm,
I'll turn it on its question, which
I
for
would
me would be Pine Valley. I'd be happy playing it the rest of my life. I loved it.
I would probably choose one of two, either the old course,
That's awesome
um,
that you played that.
or another place in Scotland called Stonehaven that is a par 66 that
Oh,
is a place that a lot of people have never heard of. And when I was going over there, somebody told me, you need to play it. It's a hidden gem, and we said, okay, we're gonna do it, and we went, and I mean, 15 holes essentially are like playing seven, eight, and nine at Pebble Beach, except it's on the North Sea. And you
oh wow.
play 3 holes across the railroad tracks, and you come back, and it's amazing. I'll have to send you. I know I've sent Hunter the video. There's like a hole by hole, like a flyover, and you can see what I'm talking about. I mean, it's just like if you've seen what Cape Kidnappers looks like, where it's got the fingers in New Zealand that just like fall off. That's how like the first hole just goes off to this cliff. It's a par four. It's got a big grass bunker in the fairway called Hitler's bunker because a bomb got dropped there in World War II. And it ends 18's a par three with a cemetery behind it. It's crazy. So yeah, I would probably choose one of those two just because I'm like a huge golf history
Yeah,
nerd, and I think that it's probably the best thing you can do if you're a serious golfer is to go to Scotland and play golf
yeah.
and
What
go to
about
the Masters. Those two things.
yeah? How about you, Hunter?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the way you framed the question, like one you could play every day, it made me change my mind a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Cypress Point.
I was gonna say Cyprus for
Hunter,
sure.
it's a running joke. Hunter went with two people to Cypress Point. He played Cypress Point as a threesome. He couldn't find anybody else to go play with.
Yeah.
Love that.
Nobody on this podcast went with me is the problem.
Couldn't
That's what
find
it was. It
anyone
was
else.
just
Couldn't find
Or
a
even knew he
fourth.
went.
No,
That
it's
was-
not that nobody on this podcast went with you. It's that somebody could have, anybody could have, and they didn't because they didn't get asked.
not what we got approved for. We got approved for three people. It wasn't
Yeah,
hey, it was like I said, it wasn't me that put the trip together. I was just
of course.
Mhm.
tagging
Likely.
along, that is for
Yeah.
sure. But to that point, Cyprus would be like my favorite golf experience ever for
Yeah.
sure, 100%. But I'm going to reframe the question even a little bit more. One that I would be a member at, like if I could be anywhere that I've ever played before that I could be a member at, it would be right next to it, and it'd be Monterey probably, just because like I don't the two top 100 golf courses first of all, and then just the everydayness of that place would be so much fun. Not that Cyprus wouldn't be fun to play every day, but it's I don't know. It's not really that kind of place, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say that's crazy.
Yeah, I couldn't. I can't add anything to that. I don't know if anybody else can. But.
Justin.
It's a really tricky question. We're not used to being asked the questions.
Hmm.
All right,
Um, if we're looking at from like the history standpoint,
I love how everybody's answering those same questions so differently.
Differently. Yeah.
exactly.
some of the most fun rounds that I've had are Chicago Golf Club and Seminole, just from like the history standpoint.
Yeah.
But I will say, just from like pure fun, or would want to be a member, I really, really enjoyed Linville. Um, that was um, that was a lot of fun when we played there a couple of years ago.
Awesome. Ryan, round us out.
Um, I have not played quite as many awesome places as these guys, but
We
I was
worked at Kinlock.
well, that's where I was going to go. I did work at Kinlock, and so I got to play there a lot, and it's only a couple hours from my house. So if I had to play a golf course that I've played as a member every day, it would definitely be that one. Um, and then yeah, I've had a lot of fun ones, especially with these guys, just because of the group. But one that kind of sticks out was I played the ocean course at Kiowa with my brother-in-law, and it was in 2020, I think, because I just remember we weren't sure if we were going to be able to play because the whole island of Kiowa had been closed
Oh wow.
to people coming or going because of the pandemic. And so even like the week leading into the trip, we weren't even quite sure if we were going to be able to go. And I think maybe a few days before they opened up the island. And so when we played, I think it was the second day it had been open.
That's
And
great.
so it was just weird because we get there and the golf shop is closed and there's nobody around. There's like two other people on the range. And so it was just me and my brother-in-law and our caddy out playing the ocean course with like no one around.
Yeah,
It was it was like we had it to ourselves.
that's great.
And the caddy was like, "Yeah, this is just not normally what it's like. There's normally hundreds and thousands of people just taking pictures, or there's a wedding going on, or people just in the clubhouse." And so it was just very memorable for that reason, to play such a cool course and almost have it to ourselves. That was just a neat experience.
That's cool.
You're right down there, Eric, with all these great golf courses. Have you been to Seminole?
Seminole is not one I've been to, if anyone could help me get on there. But
Like Justin might be able to.
yeah,
I can't
I'll
help.
say like a
I-
very fun experience was Grove 23 was during Michael Jordan's 60th birthday kind of weekend. He plays 36 holes a day almost religiously. And it was literally I think total, including caddies, was 23 people in his group or something, ironically, given his number. But it was like just an absolute scene. like 16 golfers and 7 caddies or something. The caddies ride around on these little like motorized bikes, and they have like the clubs and stuff. It's absolutely
Wow,
nuts.
that's
They were
cool.
playing really loud hip hop, and at one point I was like 50 yards away from Michael. He's kind of coming down one fairway, we're going up the next, and I stop and get to watch him hit his iron shot onto the green, and I was like, this is sick. It's exactly how his swing looks on like, the Instagram videos of him playing golf or whatever.
Mm.
So like this is just insane. But that was really cool from a like experience perspective. And I've played Apogee and some of the other great courses. They're fun for sure.
You got
But
some.
it is like you guys say though, like the hidden gems. Like I'm a member at Mayaku, and that was Jack Nicklaus.
Mayaku Lakes,
Yes, yeah, yeah. As was
great
Jack.
logo.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you're always welcome, Parker. But it's like it is a fantastic course, and it's my happy place. It's also like I'd be happy playing it the rest of my life, except it's very hard, and if your game's off, you can easily lose like 6 golf balls or more in a round. I know people that have lost a dozen. So it many people consider it the hardest golf course in Florida. It was Jack Nicklaus's
Mm.
first course. You can kind of tell he designed it because it favors a draw on most holes, if not a hook off the tee. So it's like Jack was just playing to his ball flight in the 70s when he designed it, which is hilarious. But it's a lot of fun. So it doesn't have to be, anything crazy, but I really love the course. My son loves it as well. It's a great membership and just kind of there's no tee time, so you just go out and, to find your opening and go. So
I
it's
like
nice.
that.
That's cool.
Is there a brand that, like you haven't really done a lot of research on or haven't um, been into quite as much that kind of has your interest peaks of, somewhere maybe you'd want to go check out their archives or just learn more about them, something that's maybe caught your eye recently or
Yeah, I mean, no, I think there's always things and like models I'm trying to learn about and get excited about. I think I really like Jaeger LeCoultre, as Americans often say,
there
like
you go, face. There you go,
Jaeger
Fable.
LeCoultre. So I'm excited, JLC for short. I'm excited to uh, tour them in May coming up and see their archives and museum. It's not a place I've visited before, but I've always loved and kind of collected their products. On the same trip, I'll be just a couple miles away and going to see the new Audemars Piguet Museum that opened a few years ago and stay at the AP Hotel that's also new. So I'm excited. It's called the Valet de Joux. Been there one other time, but it's really the home of watchmaking. It's way up high altitude in the mountains, very primitive place. It feels like there's just all these pine trees around the mountains and then cows and like and then some buildings and watchmaking. So that is that's really like you're there and you're like for me as a watch lover, it's kind of a holy place. It's like, wow, this is where it all began. It's really cool.
That'll be an awesome trip. Well, thank you, buddy, for doing this. I appreciate it. And obviously
Thank
great to
you.
talk watches and golf and I appreciate you making the time to do so. My dog wants to talk, I think. Can y'all hear him?
No, no, we can't hear him. No.
Thank you, Justin and Ryan, as well. Nice to meet
Yeah,
you.
Nice to
thank
meet
you.
you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was cool.
I hope we can play golf soon. And Hunter, if you ever have a fourth for Cyprus, let me know.
I will call you first. How about that?
Forget
Best
your
of luck.
fellow podcasters. Call me.
I love it.
That's great.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Eric.
See
See
ya.
you. Bye.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
1, 2.